Welcome to Weasel Gaming, and today we're discussing the tactics and how to play the Cinderace Theme Deck. This is, of course, a fire-based theme deck, so we are dealing with just a straight stack of 18 fire energy, nothing too complicated there. So we'll hop right into our starter Pokemon, and of course, one starter for you is Pseudowudo. Pseudowudo is kind of an interesting Pokemon, kind of an oddball in this deck, being the only fighting type here, but doesn't require any fighting energy. You have a 1 energy double draw, which allows you to draw 2 cards, which is why this is a pretty good card to start out with, just to start cycling your deck, getting some more cards, getting that stuff you need to set up the right moves. Flail is kind of an interesting one. As Pseudowudo takes damage, his Flail ability does more damage. So early on, if you have an opponent that is starting to do some damage with their basic Pokemon, it's actually prepping Pseudowudo to do damage back. And really the best idea is not to do little bits of damage, 10, 20, 30 when you get those early hits, but keep doing double draw until Flail is big enough to just knock out the opponent's Pokemon. Pseudowudo is not one that's going to stand for very long or do a lot of damage really in the long run, but it's not a bad starter just for the drawing ability. Your other starter, if you happen to draw both the Vulpix and Ninetales, is shooting up to the Ninetales. Ninetales has 120 health. For 1 energy, does Flame Cloak for 30 damage, and you attach a fire energy card from your discard pile to this Pokemon. And then Fire Main can do 70 damage for 2 energy. That's not great mid to late game. That's not a lot of power. But early on as a starter, putting 2 energy out there and doing 70 damage, you can have that running by second or third round and able to take out some basics or at least do some damage to some stage 1 Pokemon. Now, sadly, there is a little bit of dead weight, and that's Drampa. You have 2 Drampas in the deck. 130 health with a 2 energy Dragon Pulse attack, which does do 80 damage. However, it causes you to discard the top 2 cards of your deck. Now, in the included tactics sheet, it actually tries to sell this as a good idea. You put Drampa out there, you do the attack, you do some damage, you discard some cards, but then that supposedly gives you damage that you can draw back using Ninetales' Flame Cloak or Cinderace's Flame Cloak. So you discard a whole bunch of cards hoping you discard some energy so that later you can use really weak attacks to pull that energy out of your discard pile. This is a horrible idea. This is a bad plan. Do not do this. Don't play Drampa. And I say that, with some reservations. Drampa's good staller. You put Drampa out there when you need a couple turns to draw some more cards or get some energy on someone that's on the bench. Prepare someone to actually do something for you. Drampa's 130 hit points and few weaknesses can actually hold out for a decent time against those early Pokemon. Would I use Dragon Pulse if I needed to? If I was desperate, if I didn't have other options, I guess I'm going to use it. But it is not where I'm planning to put any of my energy or effort in this deck. Next up, we're looking at defensive Pokemon. And really the only option we have here in this deck is Double. So Wooloo really isn't a great Pokemon. Does have a 3 energy headbutt for 50 damage, but that's a lot of energy for 50 damage and on a Pokemon that's only got 70 health. So it doesn't make a good starter. However, if you're evolving up to Double, you then have 130 health and you have Cotton Guard, which for 1 energy allows you to do 30 damage while blocking 30 on the opponent's turn. That's not too bad. And Double looks really impressive when you look at Double Edge, which is a 3 energy attack for 120 damage, until you realize that double has to do 30 damage to itself to do that attack. So that often means double is going to get 3 energy and die in 1 or 2 turns. And is going to end up killing itself or doing enough damage to itself that it's going to kill itself. Keep in mind always with these kind of weaker attacks, going in with Cotton Guard against something that has, let's say, 150 health, or 140 or 130 is really the best move. Don't do the double edge, weaken yourself, leave yourself the ability to get knocked out. Do Cotton Guard first. Do the 30 damage, block 30 damage, hopefully keeping double alive. You're then making it so they have to do at least 160 damage to take you out. Then you can come back with that other 120. So that's how you want to use double if you have to. Again, double's not great because of the self-damaging aspect. Next up, we're looking at our power. And again, double's kind of sitting in there for power attacks. But really, your power is going to be coming from the Score Bunny line, which is going to come to a head with Cinderace. Cinderace has a good deal of health with 170 health. The Flame Cloak attack for 40 damage and attaching an energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon is not super great. But if you're in a pinch, it can be used to help get you up to Bright Flame. Bright Flame does 160 health, which is enough to knock out most of the opposing Pokemon you're going to find out there. There are some guys that are going to have more than that or be defensive against you, but 160 is pretty impressive. However, then you have to flip a coin, and if you get a Tails, you have to discard 2 energy. That's your problem. You're going to need a lot of energy dedicated to Cinderace to keep him in the game. I would typically recommend you keep at least 4 energy on Cinderace. That allows you, if you attack with Cinderace, you throw a Tails, that drops you down to 2 energy still, you can put 1 more energy on Cinderace the next turn when you want to attack again. The only thing that's going to take you out then is if you throw double Tails. So that's really where a lot of your energy is going to be going here. And you then see what the problem is with this deck. That's it. We've already talked about double's 120 damage with its self-damaging attack. Drampa's kind of dead weight. Ninetales doesn't hit very hard. Pseudowudo doesn't hit it hard. All your damage is going to be coming from Cinderace. And if you can't get Cinderace out there with enough energy, you're going to be hurting. So this deck really kind of struggles to be a heavy hitter. And that's it for our Pokemon. So types, you're dealing with mostly fire type. However, you do have some colorless there with Drampa and Dubwool. So you really have to watch out for water. And you're going to need to watch out for fighting decks also. And there is a lot of threat there. For water, you have the Inteleon deck, which isn't super strong, but is a major threat to you. There's the new Dreadnought deck coming out with Vivid Voltage. And of course, there's the Darmanitan deck that's out that really tears Cinderace apart. So there's a lot of weaknesses for this deck and not a lot of strengths. You're going to be powerful, of course, against grass decks or anyone that's weak to fire. So Rillaboom needs to be worried about you, but that's about it. So this deck just doesn't have a lot of strengths right now. On to our trainer cards. For drawing, you have 4 hops, which is pretty good, and you have 3 professors, which is not great. Keep in mind, you do have Pseudowudo that you can use for draws. Even mid-game, you can throw him out there with 1 energy. He might be able to survive a round or 2 and get you a couple draws just to kind of slow down the progression. But Hop is going to be very important to you. Professor is going to have to be used, and thankfully you got a lot of dead weight Pokemon. Mid to late game, Ninetales and Vulpix aren't very good. Pseudowudo is kind of iffy. Drampa's dead weight. So there's a lot of potential cards you can throw away with this deck, which means you can get some use out of the Professor. For pulling Pokemon, you actually have 4 Great Balls and 2 Pokekids. Now, if there were any Pokemon you wanted to draw in this deck, that would be great. However, you don't get a lot of great options. Great Ball allows you to draw 7 cards off your deck and pick one of those Pokemon to pull into your hand. Pokekid allows you to search through your whole deck. Pokekid is going to be instrumental in making sure you can get Cinderace put together, evolved, and out into play. So that's where Pokekid needs to be used. For energy, you have Bead. Bead allows you to attach a basic energy card from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. Keep in mind it's benched. So that's a handy way to make sure you can get Cinderace up to par super quick. If you have Raboot or Cinderace on your bench, you can play one energy out of your hand and use Bead to play another energy out of your hand to really get Cinderace stocked up on energy before you put him into the active spot. You don't have any healing in this deck, which hurts. You do have a switch, though, and that can be used to pull Pokemon back from the front line. Oftentimes, that's going to be used to bring Cinderace back when he runs out of energy and you need a couple turns or a couple uses of Bead or something like that to get Cinderace energized again so that you can get that bunny back out there. You have one ordinary rod, which allows you to pull some Pokemon that you've lost or some energy that you've lost from the discard pile and shuffle them back into your draw pile. This is great for recovering any lost Cinderaces that you're going to need to survive in a rough game, maybe double. It's also great for pulling energy back so that you can use it. Keep in mind that one thing with Energy Rod, if you're pulling energy back to put back in your deck so you draw more energy, pulling worthless Pokemon back is not going to help you. Those worthless cards thicken your deck and make it harder for you to pull the cards you want. So don't just pull a Drampa and a Vulpix because they're in your discards. Leave them in your discards. Only pull back good Pokemon you actually might or want to use. You also have Pokegear 3.0. This allows you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck and reveal a supporter. Your main use there is going to be Bead or Hop. Professor's Research in a pinch. Pokekid's a good option also. You have a lot of supporters in this deck. You're going to be using it to try to get energy placed or pull a specific Pokemon. So those are your options. You also have one Pokemon Catcher that can be used in a desperate attempt to try to get them to switch their frontline Pokemon. Altogether, this is a tough deck to play. Right out of the gates, when it was released against Inteleon and Rillaboom, it was okay because it did play strong against Rillaboom. But in this day and age, a little later into the generation, it is a weak deck. There's not a lot of heavy hitters. There's no defense. There's some dead weight Pokemon in there. It's just not a strong deck. So looking at our stats, you can see that it's a power 3. Cinderace can do some good damage if you can keep energy on him. But that's really about it for the deck. Speed 3. Speed is talking about how quickly you can get the Pokemon onto the bench and get energized up. Sorry, let's redo that. Speed is how fast you can get your Pokemon energized and attacking. And in this deck, you can. You have some stuff that can, right out of the gate, start doing some damage early on. It's not too hard to get Cinderace into play. So it's a fairly speedy deck at a 3. Agility is your ability to really be able to pull the Pokemon you need, get them on the bench when you need them. And really, you're hindered here more, not by your ability to pull some Pokemon, but your ability to pull any Pokemon worthwhile. So agility's 2, because there's really not a lot of great cards to play in here. Efficiency is how efficient are you? How do you handle your energy? And this is a 2. You don't have a lot of ways to pull energy, recover energy, or play any energy. You have a couple beads, sure. You have the ordinary rod, yes. But that's about it. And chances are Cinderace is going to go through a lot of energy. Now, luckily, you don't really have anywhere else to play your energy, so you might do okay. Complexity of this deck is very low at a 1. There's nothing tricky about this deck. It's straightforward. Resiliency is a 2. You don't have a lot of high health. You don't have any real defense besides Dubwool, who's going to end up doing damage to himself if he wants to really be effective. You don't have any healing. It's not a great deck resiliency-wise. Type ability is actually pretty weak. You have an upcoming water deck that's coming out. You have Darmanitan. You have Inteleon. There's a lot of weaknesses here and not a lot of strengths. Manipulation is set at a 1. You do have that Pokemon catcher that might be able to trip up an opponent at some point, but that's really about it. Altogether, a pretty weak, kind of substandard deck. It's not a deck that's going to hold out very well. It's not going to do any better, really, as this generation goes along. It's just going to be forgotten. So hopefully you learned a little bit about this deck, and hopefully you learned not to play this deck. If you want to play a fire-based theme deck, go with Relentless Flame. Much better. And, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.